From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
I'm Charles Denny. Awesome kids growing their own food in a school garden, partnering with University of Tennessee Master Gardeners. That story from Lebanon, Tennessee, coming up on AgDay.
California's Proposition 12 takes center stage at the highest court in the land as harvest kicks into high gear.
I'm Michelle Rook here in Nebraska, where farmers are facing one of the driest years since 2012.
What drought is doing to yields right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The harvest is going especially fast in the drought-stricken areas of the western corn belt. AgDay's Michelle Rook was in the bullseye of Nebraska to find out how far yields are off of normal.
Farmers are harvesting a disappointing crop here in Nebraska, and it's understandable after facing one of the driest growing seasons since the drought of 2012. Mike Korth farms in one of the driest parts of the state. It received less than 6 inches of rain all year.
In Nebraska, the driest part of the state is right what we're sitting in. This is what they call an exceptional drought.
It wasn't just the lack of moisture, but the heat that pulled irrigated soybean yields down by 10 to 15% from normal, and dry land yields are much worse.
They're probably down about 25% and even more on the extremely dry areas. It's worse than that, about 50%.
Irrigated corn yields are also down about 10% below his APH, and dry land production is a near disaster on some fields with lighter soils.
Down 50 to 60%. I mean, one did not register hardly. I did another field that made in the 40s. I did one in the 60s, and then one that did about 120.
Craig Eberson picked up a few more rains late in the season to help dry land beans, and irrigated won't be far off farm averages.
We've got some beans, irrigated beans are in the 70s. Some dry land beans, we've had some in the 50s and some in the 40 range.
His dry land corn is a disaster, but irrigated corn is only off about 20 bushels from last year.
We're getting some 250, 60s on the irrigated corn. Some of our dry land on good farms is yielding well into the hundreds. Some of the dry land that we cut early for silage is pretty poor, probably 40, 50 bushel of corn.
And Eberson says with the crop insurance and higher prices, he'll still have a pretty good year, but 2022 will go down for the state as one of the worst in recent memory. In Nebraska, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. USDA's latest crop progress report shows that 31% of the corn crop has been harvested. That's 1% ahead of the 5-year average. Zeroing in on Nebraska, where Michelle was, it stands at 34%. That's 12% ahead of that 5-year average. As for soybeans now, they're 44% harvested, 6% ahead of average, while winter wheat planting moving across the halfway mark, now 55% planted. And harvest is going to really start to pick up pace as big swings are coming temperature-wise. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with more. Matt.
That's right, Clinton, and we've got those big swings in the temperature department coming towards the East Coast as we head towards Saturday. But let's pick this up earlier in the week. We're talking Thursday morning. We're talking a deep freeze all the way up into the northern plains and upper Midwest, and then that colder air starts to drift into the Ohio Valley, parts of the Great Lakes heading into Friday morning, and eventually by Saturday morning it gets all the way into the mid-Atlantic states, portions of the Appalachian Mountains, and interior New England as well. So still dealing with the very chilly air heading into the weekend. And down south, if you look at these temperatures later on this afternoon, 80s, 90s, even triple digits in parts of Texas. So really fall, the battle of the seasons is here. And that cold front's going to be sweeping through portions of the Midwest and the center part of the country tomorrow, and that's going to bring some cooler, more fall-like air to places like Omaha, St. Louis, and keep more of that heat farther down to the south. But you can see tomorrow morning, look at these temperatures. We're talking 30s and low 40s. That's what it's going to feel like with the winds really howling behind that cold front. And harvest is in full swing as well in southwest Michigan. Jason Cloud sharing this photo saying they've been blessed with good weather for harvesting soybeans, and let's just hope that continues, Jason. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Happening later today, USDA will release its latest supply-demand report. Usually, We don't expect much change between the September forecast and the October one, but this year, well, may be different. Some market watchers are expecting fairly big adjustments. Recently, USDA released some statistical estimates on ending stocks for corn and soybeans and the final size of the 2022 wheat crop. Some of those numbers were lower than expected, especially when it comes to winter wheat.
Quite a bit smaller than we had been forecasting. There was a lot more wheat abandonment and yields were a bit lower than we had been expecting.
Now, those new numbers will be released at noon Eastern time today. We will bring them to you online and look for complete analysis Thursday morning right here on Ag Day. A labor strike still remains a possibility for U.S. railroads. That's after the third largest railroad union rejected a tentative agreement this week. More than half of the 23,000 members of the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division Union opposed the agreement. Now, you'll remember the last-minute tentative agreement was struck just before a September 16th deadline and had the support of the White House. But union leaders argue the railroads didn't do enough to address worker concerns, specifically working conditions and paid time off. Now both sides will need to return to the bargaining table to avoid a possible strike once again. But a strike, it can't happen until at least November 19th. That's according to the union. Now, major railroads carry 30% of the nation's freight. A strike could cause shortages and higher prices for essentials like food and gas. Farmland is still going for record amounts. Take the latest case in Iowa. In Plymouth County, a local farmer reportedly bought this land for $26,250 an acre. Bidding had started at $17,000. Now, Jim Rothermich of Iowa Appraisal says he confirmed the sale price has no influence from development or wind energy, that it's based on the production of corn and soybeans. Now, he says it's the highest price he knows of in the state and in Plymouth County. The last record was just set back in August when the property in Sioux County went for $26,000 an acre. The International Monetary Fund is downgrading its outlook for the world economy for next year. It says it's due to several things, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine, chronic inflation pressures, punishing interest rates, and the lingering consequences of the global pandemic. The 190 country lending agencies forecasting the global economy will grow just 2.7% next year. That's down from the 2.9% it had estimated back in July. The organization's chief economist saying the three major economies, the United States, China, and Europe, are stalling.
In short, the worst is yet to come, and for many people, 2023 will feel like a recession. Almost everywhere, rapidly rising prices, especially for food and energy, are causing serious hardships for vulnerable households. Despite the slowdown, inflation pressures are proving broader and more persistent than anticipated.
The IMF expects worldwide consumer prices to rise 8.8% this year. That's up from 4.7% last year. After a roaring start to the week, wheat markets pull back on Tuesday. We'll have details next. And later, we're off to the volunteer state where it's hands-on learning at this garden. What lessons are being shared today in the country?
Ag Day is brought to you by Farm Shop MFG. Did you know that 20% of stored corn is often overventilated by 3 points of moisture? On 100,000 bushels, that's a whole semi-load. Stop this problem for less with the End Zone for Corn from Farm Shop MFG. Specially priced at $1,800 per unit while supplies last.
Wheat futures soared on Monday, but faced pressure from profit-taking on Tuesday. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us again with more on where things are moving midweek.
Tuesday's market closes a mixed day in grains and hogs. We were higher in the cattle. Here to talk about that is Don Rose with U.S. Commodities. But I want to kind of hone in on the grains here. Kind of a tug of war continues in these markets between tighter supplies versus demand concerns.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's all about, Michelle. We saw after the crop report, it was all about the supply side, and after the stocks and all positions report, we tried to move higher quickly. And again, that December corn just stumbles around the $7 mark, soybeans around 14. Just on the demand side, when we get up to those levels, it seems like it just kind of stalls out.
Right, so we get some profit taking, maybe a little farmer selling as well at those levels. So let's talk about the WASDE today. expectations are we're going to see tighter stocks for corn and wheat, a little bit bigger on soybeans. Is that already baked in?
Yeah, I think it probably is to a certain degree, but it's going to be all about yields. And then, don't rule out that this ending stocks on corn might be the tightest one that we see here for the marketing year, just because the exports may slow down, ethanol may slow down. The soybean stocks, remember, they grew in the last report. On the stocks report, that's going to be carried over. And then it's going to be up to the yield after that on soybeans. And does it get bigger or like it did last year, or smaller? Small crops get smaller. So that's going to be a big jump ball.
And then on Thursday, we have the CPI come out, and that's going to be a big key here for outside market influence into the commodities sector too.
Well, that's going to be a big one, Michelle. It's maybe second right behind the crop report that a person's going to have, because it's really going to tell us from the demand side. The report's probably going to be more about the supply side, and then the CPI is going to be about the demand, because does it signal inflation still running too strong? Do we see the interest rates continue to push up? And that's a stronger dollar, that's a weaker demand.
Yeah, that's been a big report the last few months. Thanks so much for joining us, Don, with analysis. Don runs U.S. Commodities. We have more AgDay and weather coming up.
For all your risk management and trading needs, call one of the U.S. Commodities specialists at 800-247-4071. Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us, taking a look at jet stream. It looks like we can really see that dip where it's going to cool off.
Yeah, we're going to see the really chilly air start to filter in from Canada. That's going to be behind that cold front, but it's also going to linger into next week. And if we take a look at the jet stream here, you can really see the cooler air, the cooler colors up in portions of the upper Midwest, northern plains, and that's going to start to move its way over the Great Lakes. That's going to be bringing in some much cooler air, even all the way down as far as the Mid-South. Back to the west, though, notice we still have a pretty big ridge there. That's going to keep the warmth locked in, not only to the west, but all the way along the Gulf Coast and into parts of Florida as well. That cooler air kind of retreats a little bit heading into Sunday, but don't worry, it's going to come even farther down to the south a little bit, maybe even as far down south and east as parts of the mid-Atlantic coast there, where it could be dealing with temperatures in the 40s and even 30s during the mornings early next week. But notice the ridge staying very strong back in the west. Keeps the warmth locked in. We're talking 70s, 80s, maybe some 90s there. 90s down across the south. And watch this. As this cold front really starts to move across the Midwest, you can really see it right here in the early morning hours. And then as the day progresses, we'll get a little bit more warmth back here where skies are clearing, and then things will stay cool where we're still dealing with those rain showers and cloud cover. Look at the high, though. Minneapolis in the upper 40s, really starting to feel like fall. And behind that front, we're going to be dealing with those colder temperatures, especially in the morning. Light freeze, area-wide frost, this area here heading into Friday morning, and then that moves eastward heading into Saturday. That includes portions of the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, and parts of the Ohio Valley as well. And that cold front is right on in here and moving through as we head through today with some showers and storms out in the southeast ahead of it. High pressure, though, replacing it. A lot of clear skies and calm winds back in the west. Once that cold front sweeps off the coast, the cooler air replaces it. Could have some lake-enhanced rain showers on the backside in parts of the Great Lakes. Otherwise, we are going to be starting to clear things out. But a decent amount of rain expected in the east. And then next week, another system could move across the southern portion of the country and up into the New England, where we could see even more rain on top of what we'll see over the next couple of days. And we'll continue to track that right here on Ag Day. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Plymouth, Indiana, periods of rain and very breezy, a high near 67 degrees. Heading to Sterling, Colorado, 70 degrees, sunny but windy outside, winds gusting to 45 miles an hour. And Chico, California, sunny and hot, a high near 91.
The nation's highest court hears arguments about California's Prop 12 law. We'll have highlights from the day's testimony. And later, lessons from the garden as these folks in Tennessee learn to grow together. Pork took center stage before the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday with the High Court hearing oral arguments in regards to California's Proposition 12. The case, brought by the National Pork Producers Council and the American Farm Bureau Federation, both organizations against California's law, which bans the sale of pork from hogs born to sows that weren't raised according to the state's production standards. Since Prop 12 was approved by state voters in November of 2018, NPPC has waged a legal battle against the initiative. NPPC contends the law violates the state's Commerce Clause, which grants Congress the power to regulate trade among the states and limits the ability of states to regulate commerce outside their borders.
If Proposition 12 is lawful, New York can say that pigs have to have 26 feet of space and send inspectors into farms to police compliance as California does. Oregon can condition imports on workers being paid the minimum wage, and Texas can condition sales on the producer employing only lawful U.S. residents. And at that point, we have truly abandoned the framers' idea of a national market.
The supporters say the state has the right to set standards for products sold to its consumers, regardless of where they are produced.
Proposition 12 reflects a moral tradition that has been respected for millennia. The consuming meat that is a product of animal cruelty is itself immoral. California chose to rid its markets of some of those immoral products, and the framers did not sub silentio prohibit states from banning immoral products by hiding that revolutionary limit in a negative implication in a clause that simply is an affirmative grant of authority to Congress, nor do they impose more demanding health and safety proof requirement.
The Supreme Court has until the end of the term to come to a decision, and that might not happen until June of next year. Coming up, digging in the dirt, how multiple generations are developing healthy habits by working together in the garden. Next, in the country. Farmers know teaching young people to grow their own food and the responsibility it takes to raise it has so many benefits. Charles Denny shows us a garden where kids and adults spent the summer working together to make things grow.
I want you to look at where your fingernail is. That's how deep you're going to go.
It's time to do some digging at Sam Houston Elementary in Lebanon. These second graders are hard-working gardeners, growing vegetables in this site on school grounds.
Like, it's really cool, like, you dig up the ground and then you put it in and then it's really fun.
Leading the effort, Shanae and Alex Scott, who head the nonprofit Vine Branch Fellowship and its HEAT program, which stands for Healthy Eating at the Table.
I hope they just understand the whole concept of growing their own food. Also actually putting the actual gardens together, being hands-on more. I think they'll learn a lot from that.
We know that if they have their hands in the dirt, they're more likely to eat what they grow.
In addition to their nonprofit, the Scotts are with UT Extension's Master Gardener program in Wilson County, and they also have gardens at other schools in Lebanon. The Sam Houston side has been productive. Lots of healthy and beautiful vegetables here. Several kids already knew gardens often have pretty flowers, but they're also a place where tiny seeds can become the foods you eat.
We're kind of going from spring, summer into fall, so we have all fall crops seeded now. We have broccoli, we have cabbage, kale, beets, radish. We still have some tomato plants growing out here from the summer.
When you introduce a kid to a garden, there's a lot of good things going on. First of all, they learn about the science of plants and ecosystems, but also they take ownership of the garden and become responsible for keeping it growing.
Is this guy actually makes them all?
It's an idea that master gardeners embrace, improving a community and teaching others about horticulture. Here, these children build a connection to healthy foods.
And we've had some master gardeners who have just kind of latched on to the vision of what they're doing. And it's pretty exciting right now because the whole Master Gardener program is based upon educational outreach. And what better group to reach than kids?
Harvest time is coming for the Sam Houston Garden, and these kids will continue to work their school grounds and learn from the master gardeners. Healthy habits are formed when generations get together in a garden. This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles, and that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. great day on Farmland.